For centuries, roughly 10% of the human population has been treated like absolute criminals, accused of witchcraft, and forced to completely rewire their brains. Why? Because they preferred using the wrong hand. Today, we are exposing the absolute dumbest, most absurd historical laws and societal mandates ever weaponized against Southpaws. Society spent generations waging a completely unhinged war against the left hand. 1. During the Edo period in Japan, a husband possessed a completely legal, unquestioned right to divorce his wife the moment he discovered she was left-handed. Yes, simply favoring your left hand for pouring tea or writing calligraphy was considered a profound character flaw and legitimate grounds to instantly terminate a marriage. You have to wonder how many women spent their entire marriages terrified of accidentally grabbing a chopstick with the wrong hand. Can you imagine signing your own divorce papers with the very hand that caused the divorce in the first place? 2. In the late 19th century, the father of modern criminology, Cesare Lombroso, essentially made it a medical and legal rule that left-handedness was a primary indicator of a biological criminal. He systematically documented that pickpockets, swindlers, and murderers were disproportionately left-handed, advising law enforcement to view them with innate suspicion. If you were naturally left-handed in this era, authorities essentially looked at you as a walking, ticking crime wave waiting to happen. It was a completely absurd pseudo-scientific profiling system built entirely around penmanship preference. 3. Throughout the Middle Ages, ecclesiastical laws and the Inquisition operated under the strict belief that the devil himself was left-handed. Because of this bizarre theological panic, using your left hand to heal, cook, or even gesture could be formally entered into court records as evidence of witchcraft or demonic possession. Thousands of naturally left-handed individuals had to aggressively hide their dominant hand just to avoid being interrogated by paranoid religious zealots. Surviving the medieval period literally meant pretending your dominant arm was completely useless. 4. For most of the 20th century, the American educational system effectively outlawed left-handedness in the classroom through brutal, unsanctioned enforcement. Teachers were legally permitted, and often encouraged, to forcefully tie a left-handed student's arm behind their back or to their chair to physically compel them to write with their right hand. This systemic psychological conditioning caused generations of children to develop stutters and severe anxiety. 5. Across various Middle Eastern and Islamic cultures, historical civil codes and deep-rooted religious laws strictly prohibited using the left hand for eating, greeting, or passing objects. The left hand was legally and socially designated exclusively for personal hygiene, meaning it was considered culturally filthy. If you forgot this rule and passed a merchant a coin with your left hand, it was an extreme punishable insult. Left-handed people essentially had to live their entire public lives operating a completely unnatural right-handed puppet just to buy bread. 6. The rigid social laws of Victorian high society dictated that offering your left hand for a handshake was not just incredibly rude, it was an intentional, calculated insult designed to initiate a fierce social feud. Etiquette guides of the era clearly stated that a gentleman must never acknowledge a left-handed greeting, effectively excommunicating the offender from polite society. Your reputation, financial credit, and marriage prospects could literally be ruined overnight simply because you accidentally reached out with the wrong limb at an exclusive garden party. 7. In medieval Germany, the local executioner operated under an insanely strict, legally binding municipal contract. Town charters officially mandated that the heavy sword of justice must be swung exclusively with the right hand. If a left-handed executioner was hired, he literally had to perform his incredibly high-stakes job using his weak arm. If he botched the swing because of this absurd civic law, he wasn't just fired. The angry mob had the legal right to attack him. Imagine having the most stressful job on earth, and the city legally forces you to do it backward. 8. The legendary Zulu warriors operated under a strict military law that absolutely forbade the use of the left hand in combat or daily tribal life. King Shaka Zulu was famous for his terrifying military discipline, and a soldier caught holding their stabbing spear in their left hand faced immediate execution for breaking formation and bringing bad omens to the regiment. Being a southpaw in the mighty Zulu kingdom wasn't just a quirky personal trait. It was a strict capital offense that would quickly result in a lethal demonstration of right-handed superiority. 9. In Malawi, recent sociological research revealed a terrifyingly strict unwritten societal rule. Surveys showed that left-handedness isn't just viewed as unusual, but as a severe behavioral flaw that the majority of people firmly believe must be forcefully corrected. A massive share of respondents explicitly stated that southpaws should be physically forced to switch hands for all daily tasks. Imagine reaching for a simple spoon at dinner, only to realize your entire community secretly believes you need a mandatory, aggressive, right-handed intervention. 10. While society hated lefties, the founder of the Boy Scouts, Robert Baden-Powell, actually mandated a left-handed handshake as an official rule. But don't celebrate yet. He took this from West African tribes who used the left hand to hold their shields. Dropping your shield to shake with your left hand meant you were entirely vulnerable. So the only time in history an official organization formally demanded a left-handed greeting, it was specifically designed to prove you were completely defenseless and trusting the other person not to instantly assassinate you. 11. If you get called to the witness stand today, pay close attention to the bailiff. Under deeply entrenched common law traditions across the United States, raising your left hand to swear on the Bible renders the oath completely invalid. Judges have actually thrown out testimony and forced witnesses to restart the entire swearing-in process just because they use their dominant hand. 12. Imagine training your whole life for a sport, only to be banned simply for existing. In 1974, the United States Polo Association passed an absolute non-negotiable rule officially outlawing left-handed play. They argued that a southpaw swinging a mallet creates a catastrophic head-on collision risk with right-handed players. So instead of adjusting the game, they just legislated lefties right out of the sport entirely. If you want to play professional polo today, you either learn to swing with your weak arm, or you just go find another hobby. 13. In the Middle Ages, strict Cistercian monks lived under a brutal vow of silence, communicating entirely through a highly regulated monastic sign language. The official rules of the abbey dictated that all primary signs must be made strictly with the right hand. Using the left hand to signal for bread or water was considered a severe violation of monastic law, often resulting in strict penance. Imagine starving in a freezing monastery simply because you accidentally asked for your dinner using your completely unauthorized left hand. 14. In ancient Rome, the legal and political system was entirely controlled by powerful priests called augurs. However, Roman constitutional law demanded absolute physical perfection to hold this elite office. Under their strict legal definitions, left-handedness was officially classified as a severe physical defect, known as a vitium. This meant a left-handed citizen was strictly barred by law from ever reading omens, commanding armies, or holding high political office. Your natural genetics permanently disqualified you from participating in Roman democracy. 15. The Catholic Church had very strict, codified rules about how grace could be transmitted. According to traditional canonical directives, a priest giving a blessing, performing an exorcism, or offering communion had to use his right hand. If he accidentally used the left, the ritual was often considered spiritually void. The Vatican essentially operated on the legal assumption that divine intervention had a very strict directional preference. Imagine finding out your marriage isn't valid because the local bishop was a slightly distracted southpaw. 16. During the American Civil War, military recruiters had a massive problem with lefties. The standard-issue Springfield rifled musket was specifically designed for right-handed soldiers, with the black powder flash exploding out the right side. Army regulations permitted doctors to formally reject left-handed draftees because firing the weapon awkwardly could blind the soldier or the guy next to him. Being left-handed was actually a legal medical exemption from the bloodiest war in American history. Finally, a historical moment where it actually paid off. 17. The United States Marine Corps drill manual gets incredibly specific about military protocol, completely shutting down left-handed ceremonies. According to the strict codified regulations, a formal rifle salute can be executed from right shoulder arms, but the official manual explicitly outlaws performing it from the left shoulder. The left side is perfectly fine for carrying the heavy weapon on a grueling march, but when the fancy ceremonial moment arrives, it is strictly forbidden from participating. Talk about military-grade right-handed bias. 18. In strict Old Order Amish communities, the entire society is governed by an absolute, unyielding legal and religious code known as the Ordnung. This community law strictly mandates that all children must be forcefully trained to use their right hand, as the left is legally and spiritually classified as unholy. Defying this rule is not just frowned upon. An adult who stubbornly refuses to conform to right-handedness can face formal shunning. This means you are legally and socially banished, completely ignored by your own family simply for being a natural southpaw. 19. For decades, the New York Police Department's official patrol guide legally mandated how cops wore their gear. The strict uniform regulations explicitly required all officers to wear their heavy service revolver exclusively on the right side of their duty belt. Left-handed cops were officially written up for severe uniform violations if they dared to move their holster. The police department's official rulebook legally forced its own left-handed officers to perform a slow, incredibly dangerous cross-draw during deadly city shootouts. 20. In Renaissance Europe, if you wanted to make a living copying books, you had to join the fiercely protective Guild of Scribes. These powerful unions had ironclad legal charters strictly outlawing any member from writing left-handed. Because left-to-right medieval ink took forever to dry, a southpaw would inevitably smear the intensely expensive parchment. Violating this strict guild law meant immediate expulsion, massive financial fines, and permanent blacklisting from the industry. Your entire career was instantly destroyed over a single smudged drop of ink. 21. Until 1986, the Soviet Union's Ministry of Health enforced a brutal, nationwide state mandate requiring the immediate re-education of all left-handed children. It wasn't merely a polite suggestion, it was a strict government decree. Doctors and teachers operated under state orders to forcefully convert southpaws, believing uniformed citizens were essential for the communist machine. Imagine the actual government legally dictating which hand you use to hold your dinner fork just to ensure you perfectly match the rigid collective. It was state-sponsored conformity. 22. In the Eastern Orthodox Church, ancient canon law aggressively polices how you wear your wedding band. While Westerners use the left ring finger, Orthodox marital rules dictate the ring must be forced onto the right hand. Why? Because biblical texts repeatedly claim the right side represents divine strength, while the left is inherently deceitful and cursed. If you attempt to place the ring on your spouse's left hand during a traditional ceremony, the priest will legally halt the entire wedding. 23. During the golden age of medieval tournaments, the strict chivalric laws governing the joust explicitly banned left-handed knights from competing. Because a southpaw holds his heavy shield on the right arm, riding down the list would force the galloping horses into a catastrophic, head-on collision rather than a glancing pass. A left-handed knight wasn't just seen as socially awkward. Under royal tournament rules, he was categorized as a severe lethal hazard and instantly disqualified from winning any glory, gold, or royal favor. Talk about a rigged medieval system. 24. In feudal Japan, samurai walked the narrow streets under a strict code of honor. Scabbards were always worn on the left. If a left-handed samurai wore his katana on the right, his scabbard would violently collide with right-handed warriors passing by. This clash, called sayate, was a severe legal offense instantly justifying a lethal duel. To prevent constant street bloodshed, shogunate laws effectively forced all southpaw samurai to fight right-handed or face lawful execution. Imagine fighting to the death just because you bumped someone in traffic. 25. In the early 20th century, American workers' compensation laws held a deeply sinister loophole designed to screw over left-handed factory workers. Because massive industrial machines were exclusively engineered for right-handed operation, insurance companies successfully argued in court that a lefty getting mangled by a gear was entirely their own fault. They legally classified left-handedness as inherent user negligence. You could literally lose an arm, and the judge would just blame your genetics. 26. The mighty Roman Empire conquered the known world using the incredibly strict, unwavering discipline of their legions. Under official military law, fighting left-handed was strictly outlawed. The famous defensive formations required every single shield to perfectly overlap. A southpaw holding his shield on the right arm would literally break the entire defensive wall. If you instinctively reached for your sword with your left hand, your centurion had the legal authority to ruthlessly flog you for single-handedly endangering the entire empire's front line. 27. During the strict martial law era in Taiwan, which lasted all the way until 1987, the government passed uncompromising educational decrees demanding total linguistic uniformity. This meant writing traditional Chinese characters with the left hand was strictly outlawed in all public schools. Ministry inspectors routinely roamed the classrooms, and students caught holding a pencil with their left hand faced harsh physical discipline. The state literally treated a left-handed child doing basic homework like an actual, tangible threat to national security. 28. In the highly disciplined world of Japanese kyudo, or traditional archery, left-handed people are legally allowed to participate, but the official rulebook absolutely does not care about their feelings. The strict martial arts doctrine mandates that every archer must shoot right-handed, holding the asymmetrical bow in the left hand and drawing with the right. A natural lefty can walk into the dojo, but they are forced to completely rewire their brain just to participate. 29. In 1486, the Catholic Inquisition published the Malleus Maleficarum, which wasn't just a book. It was the absolute legal code used to prosecute witchcraft across Europe. This terrifying legal text officially codified that a witch would specifically use her left hand to cast curses or touch her victims. This meant that simply being left-handed was perfectly valid, legally binding evidence in a capital trial. Thousands of innocent people faced the ultimate legal punishment solely because this unhinged law book declared their dominant hand a weapon of pure evil. 30. For centuries, simply blessing yourself wrong was considered a severe religious offense. In the 13th century, Pope Innocent III formally codified the exact physical method for making the sign of the cross in Catholic canon law. He officially mandated that it must be executed exclusively with the right hand. If a left-handed peasant reflexively used their dominant hand, the Church viewed the blessing as entirely invalid and borderline heretical. 31. Major symphony orchestras operate under a strictly enforced, union-backed employment rule. Naturally left-handed violinists are categorically banned from the string section. If you arrive at an audition bowing with your left arm, you are instantly disqualified. The reasoning is purely logistical. In a tightly packed pit, a lefty's elbow would violently collide with their neighbor mid-concerto. You could be a musical genius, but if you refuse to play backward, they will never let you near a stage. 32. In the British Armed Forces, saluting an officer with your left hand isn't just frowned upon, it is historically a documented sign of open mutiny. Military regulations specifically mandated the right hand because the left was historically associated with holding a concealed weapon. Even if you lost your right arm in battle, you were expected to give a modified nod rather than ever raise that treacherous left arm to your brow. 33. Before becoming the King of England, young Prince Albert, later known as George VI, faced a brutal royal protocol. Under strict aristocratic educational mandates, his tutors legally tied his dominant left hand to a chair every single day. They aggressively forced him to write right-handed to ensure he perfectly fit the symmetrical image of a proper British monarch. This immense psychological trauma directly caused his famous, severe, lifelong stutter. 34. Ancient Roman legal and religious traditions were profoundly dictated by the concept of the left side being inherently evil. The very Latin word for left is sinister, and Roman politicians enacted laws based entirely on augury, the reading of bird flights. If birds flew to the left, it was a legally binding bad omen, immediately canceling elections and halting major commerce. Does it blow your mind that the foundations of modern democracy were once routinely delayed because a flock of random pigeons decided to make a slight left turn over the Roman Senate building? 35. In medieval European castles, architectural law literally favored the right hand. Spiral staircases were strictly engineered to curve clockwise going up. Why? It legally ensured that defending guards backing up the stairs had clear room to swing their right arms, while attackers coming up would smash their right hands into the central stone pillar. A left-handed attacker actually had a massive tactical advantage. But if a left-handed lord wanted his own castle built counterclockwise, good luck getting the Stonemasons Guild to break their strict right-hand-only building codes. 36. In the mid-20th century, state dental boards created a massive institutional nightmare for Southpaws. To secure a legal medical license, students had to pass a grueling clinical exam. However, the official testing facilities exclusively featured right-handed dental chairs. State examiners absolutely refused to accommodate left-handed students, forcing them to perform incredibly delicate, high-stakes oral surgeries backward. Your entire medical career could be legally destroyed simply because the state refused to unbolt and move a single chair. 37. In the 1920s, the Bell Telephone Company maintained a rigid corporate rulebook for their thousands of switchboard operators. Supervisors aggressively enforced a policy demanding that operators only plug in the heavy brass cables using their right hand, keeping the left strictly for answering the headset. If a manager caught a lefty naturally reversing this process, she was instantly fired for violating company equipment protocols. Your entire career handling emergency calls could be terminated in seconds just for crossing your incredibly busy hands. 38. During the dawn of Hollywood, the powerful Cinematographers Union enforced strict employment rules that heavily penalized lefties. Early motion picture cameras had to be hand-cranked at exactly 16 frames per second. Because the heavy mechanical crank was always bolted to the right side, left-handed operators struggled to maintain the legally required frame rate with their weak arm. The union frequently fired Southpaws, classifying them as biologically incompetent. Your natural grip literally prevented you from filming cinematic history. 39. When Kodak introduced mass-market photography, they didn't just sell cameras, they dictated human behavior. The early instruction manuals functioned as binding user agreements, heavily emphasizing that the shutter mechanism must only be operated with the right thumb. Early photography clubs even created bylaws banning left-handed operation, claiming it caused motion blur and wasted extremely expensive film. If you wanted to join a prestigious society of photographers, you had to physically suppress your instincts just to snap a picture of a blurry tree. 40. In several historical jurisdictions across the Middle East, civil judges strictly enforced incredibly specific forensic laws regarding property inheritance. If an illiterate citizen needed to sign a legally binding will, the court demanded a right thumbprint. If a left-handed person reflexively stamped the document with their dominant left thumb, the local magistrate would immediately declare the entire will completely fraudulent and void. Your grieving family could literally lose their entire farm just because you inked the wrong digit on your ultimate deathbed. 41. In 1777, European gentlemen settled violent disputes using a strict, legally binding rulebook called the Code Duello. This official dueling law completely screwed over Southpaws. The rules explicitly mandated that duelists must stand right side to ensure absolute fairness. A left-handed duelist was officially forced by the seconds to fire their pistol using their uncoordinated weak hand. Can you imagine stepping into a lethal, completely legal shootout, only to realize the official rulebook practically guarantees you will be shot dead? 42. The ancient, rigid codes governing Japanese geishas dictate absolute perfection in every micro-movement. One of the most unbreakable rules? Pouring sake. A geisha is strictly forbidden from pouring a client's drink with her left hand, no matter her natural dominance. Doing so is historically considered a severe insult to the guest, implying a wish for their ruin. Left-handed geishas have to endure agonizing, grueling physical retraining just to hold a tiny ceramic bottle. 43. The British Royal Navy enforced absolute discipline through the terrifyingly strict Articles of War. One absurd maritime law dictated exactly how a boatswain must blow his official silver pipe to issue ship commands. Admiralty regulations explicitly mandated the pipe must be held exclusively in the right hand. A left-handed sailor caught piping an official order with his left hand was formally charged with disrespecting a commissioned officer. You could literally be tied to the mast just for holding a tiny whistle in your dominant palm. 44. In Tibetan Buddhism, local religious laws govern exactly how you can earn good karma, and lefties are at a massive disadvantage. Sacred prayer wheels must strictly be spun clockwise, utilizing the right hand. Turning the wheel to the left is considered a profound spiritual violation that literally unwinds your accumulated good karma and actively curses you. A left-handed monk can't just casually pray. A momentary lapse of concentration and an accidental leftward flick of the wrist could legally doom their soul for multiple lifetimes. Can you imagine that pressure? 45. In the early 20th century, rigid American banking regulations essentially treated left-handedness as a financial crime. Bank tellers were legally instructed to reject personal checks if the signature slanted backward, which is a natural byproduct of left-handed cursive. Bank managers argued these left-leaning signatures were obvious forgeries, completely locking Southpaws out of their own bank accounts. Imagine trying to buy groceries, only to have the bank freeze your hard-earned funds because the angle of your cursive letter looked vaguely suspicious to a clerk. 46. The incredibly strict rules of Jewish halakha govern the meticulous creation of a sacred Torah scroll. According to ancient rabbinic law, a scribe, known as a sofer, must physically write the holy text using their right hand. If a brilliant, perfectly trained left-handed scribe writes the exact same flawless Hebrew letters, many Orthodox legal interpretations declare the entire scroll officially non-kosher and unfit for synagogue use. Your natural biology literally disqualifies you from performing one of the most sacred duties in the religion. 47. Among the traditional Meru people of Kenya, agrarian laws were deeply tied to bizarre left-handed superstitions. The tribal elders enforced a strict rule that the left hand was inherently cursed and possessed the power to destroy life. Therefore, a left-handed farmer was strictly forbidden from planting seeds or touching vital crops during the harvest, as the village genuinely believed their sinister touch would wither the food supply. You would literally be banned from feeding your own community simply because of your dominant grip. Survival was tough enough already. 48. Under the strict historical regulations of the British Parliament governed by the Oaths Act, a newly elected member of Parliament must swear their official oath of allegiance while holding the New Testament. However, parliamentary law explicitly dictates the book must be held in the right hand. Doing it with your left hand legally invalidates the entire oath. You could win a massive national election, but the government will legally refuse to let you take your seat in Parliament until you hold that little book with the correct, legally mandated appendage. 49. During the Renaissance, prestigious European fencing academies tried to legally legislate left-handers out of existence. Because Southpaws possessed a massive, unexpected tactical advantage in a duel, right-handed masters lobbied the royal courts to officially ban left-handed stances in professional dueling, claiming it ruined the elegant symmetry of the art. They literally tried to change the laws of combat just because they couldn't handle getting repeatedly stabbed by guys who naturally fought from a slightly different angle. Talk about extreme right-handed fragility. Alright, we've covered 49 utterly ridiculous items, and there is only one final rule left. But before we hit number 50, it is time for our final verdict. In our opinion, the award for the absolute dumbest law from today's list goes to the Edo period husbands who could legally divorce their wives just for pouring tea left-handed. Tossing an entire marriage into the garbage over a slightly reversed wrist motion is the ultimate level of extreme right-handed fragility. Do you agree with our verdict? Let us know in the comments. And now, our final entry. 50. In the incredibly high-stakes realm of early space exploration, NASA's engineering mandates basically outlawed left-handed astronauts from the captain's seat. During the Gemini missions, the spacecraft's critical abort handle was exclusively positioned for the right hand. If an emergency occurred during launch, a southpaw commander would have to awkwardly cross their arm over their chest while being crushed by massive G-forces just to save their life. The smartest scientists on the planet literally designed a spaceship that treated left-handedness as a fatal design flaw. Society literally spent hundreds of years legally fighting against basic human genetics, proving that the legal system has always been a little bit insane. What completely ordinary human trait do you think society will try to legally ban next? Sound off in the comments, smash the like button, and subscribe for more mind-blowing historical facts.